Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.
Welcome to Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials, a show where we delve week by week into each chapter of the Harry Potter series.
Ooh, look at your little swoopy swoopty swoop hair.
Swoop-de-swoop-de-swoop.
Swoopity swoops.
How was Ari, we're recording on Father's Day, Dad's Day. So how was dinner with your father-in-law?
It was very nice, and my sister-in-law's husband, who's also a father.
Oh,
Two
great.
fathers present.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the highlight was my niece,
Michael's
Kimmy.
a father. You have a
dog.
You have a child. You have a
Michael, don't
yeah.
scare the listeners.
Yeah, sorry. Dog child.
They're like, wow, a lot's happened.
Yeah.
I feel like, is this...
That's why we just missed
it's
that
okay.
one. That's why we missed that 1 week because Ari had to give birth. But we're back. We're back on it.
Surprise! Can you imagine? I mean, they wouldn't know. They only see me from here up.
I am a tyrant. I gave her 1 week maternity leave, and then she had to be back on the pod.
Yeah, right, y'all. I would be like, Adam, I'm sorry.
Enjoy doing the pod alone.
Yeah, I would be like, you can do it by yourself. Have fun.
Well, Ari, this week we read chapter 19 called The Lion and the Serpent.
We did.
Ari, what happens in this chapter?
In this chapter, Slytherin and Gryffindor face off in a game of Quidditch, and decree number 25 is decreed.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
I was like, those are the things that are
Yes.
like, we have to address.
People receive
I'm so sorry. I just noticed my trash. So
I would say people receive consequences for their actions.
oh yeah.
And whether it is what is the appropriate amount of consequence is the question that we may have later. I gotta be honest, Ari, I had no idea what was happening in this chapter the whole time. I do not remember this reading the book, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago.
I mean, it is. I'm trying to think what I thought when I was reading it. I mean, I remember like the song. I remember Luna's hat.
I remember the game. I don't remember the end of the chapter. I'll say that. I was reading it and I was like,
oh, really?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember when that happened, but
in this book, Quidditch like fizzles out.
Yeah.
But I didn't remember why. I felt like that.
Yeah. I mean, for the part that you're referring to where people are punished, remember that these three characters were punished at some point, but I couldn't remember when that happened. So I was like, oh, it's happening now. Okay. But anyways, we'll just get right into it.
I love that we, for some reason, have never ever been like, no spoilers, but for this chapter, we're like, we really can't say what happens at the end of the chapter. We're already going to talk about in the episode.
Well, because we're talking about this exact chapter in like 2 seconds, so I'm like, let's just wait to get to that part. Like, let's go in order. I don't know, but that's true. Yeah, we always do spoilers anyway. So the chapter opens with Harry essentially being able to put up with Umbridge's bullshit because he knows that he's like fighting back in the shadows, in the literal shadows of Hogwarts,
Right.
in a dark corridor that no one can see.
Right.
Because it's the come and go room or the room of requirement. They're fighting back against Umbridge. And apparently it's so popular, the DA, that it's been difficult to schedule meetings because of all the different schedules, but it is just so in demand that Harry's like, well, we got to try and schedule a meeting, consistently, blah, 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 blah. But they're just having trouble because of the different Quidditch schedules and the other clubs, whatnot, So Hermione has what I think is one of the most incredible moments, like ideas in this series.
Oh, yes.
And her idea is to essentially create. She must have she didn't. There's no way she got actual galleons unless Hermione also is very wealthy. She probably just went into Harry's coin purse and was like, "Let me just grab."
She just stole Harry's. I mean, I really like the idea that she's created fully counterfeit.
Yeah,
coins,
counterfeit money.
So
yeah,
funny.
Yes, yeah, Queen Hermione,
but not for the intent of spending it at all.
No, not at all. So she has come up with this idea that on these counterfeit galleons, instead of the little serial number that is supposed to be on the coins, it's actually going to be the time and date of the new meetings. And
Brilliant.
The way that it's going to alert the members of the DA is it's going to get warm or hot when they've been updated by Harry. So all Harry has to do is change his coin, and then all the other coins will update. Mm-hmm. And Terry Boot specifically is very impressed by this, which
Slay.
Also, Adam, I realized we didn't even mention in the last chapter that we did get Justin Finch Fletchley mentioned once more.
Yes.
He was mentioned. Mm-hmm. Coin. So going back to Terry Boot. Terry Boot is very impressed that Hermione can do a proteant. Is that what it was? A proteant charm?
I think it's protean.
So a protean charm. And he's like, that's really high level magic you're doing, Miss Hermione Granger. And then he's like, why aren't you in Ravenclaw, girl? And then Hermione reveals that the Sorting Hat did think about putting her in Ravenclaw, but actually decided to go with Gryffindor in the end, obviously. And then after this little discussion with Terry Boot, Harry mentions that these coins remind him of the dark mark tattoos, which isn't his favorite thing.
So protean is an adjective, which means of or pertaining to the Greek sea god Proteus. And he was the son of Oceanus and Tethys, who could change his form at will.
Ah,
so protean means you can easily assume different shapes.
I see. Okay. Thank you for that. So Hermione's like, yeah, I actually did get the idea from that exact thing, but you'll notice that I'm not having people tattoo an HP symbol into their arm or a lightning bolt. It is to be a lightning bolt.
Branding people. Yeah.
We're not branding each other with your lightning bolt scar shape,
right.
Harry. And so Harry's like, yeah, okay, cool. So the Gryffindor-Slytherin match is approaching. Everyone's very excited about it. Even the other houses, Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, are looking forward to this because they're going to be, having a face-off with these two houses as the season goes on. And even our girl Minnie makes a comment to Harry and Ron because she's like, I think you have enough to be going on with. And then she's like, I'm actually really enjoying that cup sitting in my office, so don't lose. Because I want that to stay there.
Yeah, so the last one they won was book 3, right? That was the last Quidditch Cup?
Yes, they won, but I think they've won, I guess in the first book, it was the whole situation.
He was in the hospital. So
yeah.
He didn't play the last game, I think.
And then in the second book, the whole Chamber of Secrets nonsense happened. So yeah,
right.
It would have only been the third book where there was a Quidditch Cup discussed.
Right.
So Harry's, kind of reflecting as this match is approaching. And while Gryffindor has never lost to Slytherin, in the history of matches, Gryffindor has always won, tensions are still pretty high because Gryffindor and Slytherin are just each other's arch nemesis for whatever reason. What, that they've always beat them?
Yeah.
Well, since Harry's been there.
I guess since Harry's been there.
Yeah. Since, not forever, but since Harry's been there.
Well, definitely when James Potter went there, because obviously James Potter was the greatest seeker to ever play Quidditch.
Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't a seeker though, was he? Wasn't he a keeper? What was he? He was a different position.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. In
the movie, he's a seeker, isn't he?
In the movie, they just had him be a seeker as well. Yeah, but I think he's a keeper. Or maybe he's a chaser. Anyways, listeners, if you know, please leave a comment. So unfortunately, Ron has not been very consistent when it comes to goalkeeping. He's had some really good moments. This one particular save where he kicked the quaffle all the way to the other field and it went through the other team's goalpost, which was like crazy. Adam is not impressed.
No, how? No, boo, no.
We'll get there. Mm-hmm. So apparently they're all very impressed by that and maybe some other moments. I don't know. That's like the one example that they give. But he's definitely having some... I would say anxiety. He's having some performance anxiety.
Yeah, he's also just not as good as Wood. But the thing is, like, if you don't have a JV squad... Right, they should have a secondary string. Of players that like.
It goes right into like,
Otherwise, you have to just go based on like natural talent that people have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that does seem like a lot, and maybe that's just how it is in high school. Like, I don't know in terms of English sports teams. I don't know what it's or Scottish because Hogwarts is in Scotland. I don't know, but I would assume that they have like. A team that would mainly be like first, second year, third year, maybe. And then like fourth and up. I don't know. I guess Ron is a fifth year. So sure, he probably wouldn't have been on the JV team at that age. But Ron is definitely feeling the pressure. Let's just say that. He's not doing too well. So it's also getting colder and colder as the match is approaching. And when Harry wakes up on the day of the match, it's very chilly out, and he turns to see Ron just like sitting wide awake on his bed. And I just want to say, I don't know if like I would be this person now, but there was definitely a time in my life where I was Ron in like situations like this. Like I would wake up like way earlier than I wanted to, just kind of like sit and like stare at the wall because I was like really nervous about whatever I was doing that day. Whatever big performance I had or whatever was going on. And then Harry's like, hey, friend, like, you okay? And Ron's just kind of like, So then Harry's like, okay, well, let's go have some breakfast. Like, it's okay. You know, he's just trying to like get him to like start the day.
Yeah.
And he just looks like sick, right? He looks like kind of like, he's like, his skin is like very pallid. That's the word, right? Pallid.
Sure.
Right? When you're like pale, just kind of like green,
Probably.
like a green color. And then as they're walking into the Great Hall, Harry notices that a bunch of the Slytherins are all dressed in their like, you know, Slytherin colors for the match, but also, which I'm sorry, what else are they going to wear? Their only other option is Slytherin colored school robes.
They noted it was noted as if it was like interesting, and I was like,
"No, that's why I made a note of it." I was like, "Yeah, that's what they always wear. They always wear silver and green."
Yeah,
and everyone else wears their house colors.
Right.
It's not just on the day of the match, girl.
Right. It's every damn day at this school.
Anyways, so all the Slytherins are wearing their silver and green, and also these silver badges that Harry's like kind of curious about, but he doesn't really want to stop too long because he's prioritizing just getting Ron to the table so he doesn't fall on the floor. And then like the Gryffindors are like cheering Ron on, but then Harry notices that seems to like make it even worse somehow, like because they have faith in him. He's like, oh, now everyone wants me to do it. He's just spiraling. Ron.
Yeah. It's not good.
This I would just like to say, this is called generalized anxiety disorder. That is what this is.
Yes.
That is what he is experiencing. Like, I was like, ooh, I was like, this is really, this is all the symptoms. And there's definitely a lack of like self-love and like permission to fail in Ron's mind. He's like, I have to be perfect. I can't mess up, which then in turn, speaking from experience, makes you mess up because you're putting all this pressure on. It's terrible. So, Ron, I'm so sorry.
Can I say one thing about the Great Hall? This was like, I think a little earlier in the chapter, but they said that Hermione came up with the system of the coin because like it would be too obvious if kids from different houses were like talking to each other. And I was like, so this is like true literal textual confirmation that like everyone just talks to their own houses. Like no one intermingles.
Apparently.
It's so
wild.
Weird.
Wild. I'm trying to think like what's the closest thing you could compare that to? Maybe like Greek life in college. But like, first off, some of the girls in my own sorority I like couldn't stand.
We had Greek life on campus at Loyola, but we didn't have like houses. Like they were like,
that's
more
like a huge part of it. Yeah.
You live together or whatever. But
we lived together, but like, I mean, I guess it's true that like my closest friends, like Jessica was like my best friend in college and she was in Delta, you know, like it was like, but I had so many friends who were not in my sorority.
Okay, Ari, go ahead and brag about all your friends you had, how popular you were in college. Fine.
That's not what I'm saying. I don't think I was, to be honest. But like, I don't think that that's a good representation of when you're in, like, even if you are in something like that, a very specific house where it's like, you know.
Yeah. Also, just like they all live in the same building. Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, you all have different dorms. But you're all in the same fucking castle. What?
Yeah.
You all eat in the same cafeteria, basically, girly.
It's really weird for me, too, to think that, like, they never went over to each other's common rooms. Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? That would be the first thing I would do. I would be like,
isn't it weird that there's nowhere for them to hang out? There's not like a hangout place if you were like not friends. If you were friends outside of the house. Yeah.
The library.
And you know, it's Scotland. So for like 9 months of the 11 months
yeah, you can't go outside. Yeah.
Right.
Weird. But yeah, I think that's weird. I just don't think that's an accurate representation of like, no. So, and also, what if you were in a house with people and like you liked them fine, but like you just didn't really, I don't like Hermione with like Lavender and Parvati.
Right.
Like she's like, they're fine, but they're not like her besties.
That's why her first like few months until the fucking troll sucked. Because she was like, I don't know if I can talk to.
You're right. Okay. Yeah, so you're right. So in Hogwarts, it really is just...
She was friends with Neville out of pity, and that was like pretty much it. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So Ron is basically spiraling. Harry's like, you just had that really good save the other day, bro. Like, we all saw it, and we were all very impressed. And then Ron is like, this was how I pictured it in my head. So Ron is like looking down at his plate, and then Harry says this, and then he's like, that was an accident. I didn't mean to do that. Like, it's like, he's been holding this secret in for a week. Like, he's just like, I have to tell someone. Like,
yeah.
I don't know why it was such a vivid image. He's like, I did that on accident. And then Harry's like, oh, well, just save a few things like that by accident and then we'll win. It's fine. And then right at this moment, Hermione comes up, thank God, because Harry is just not good at like making people feel better. And then she's like, oh, well, that's good that you're nervous. Like, you know, it's good to be nervous before exams. It's the same thing. Like, yeah, that's a good sign. So she's trying to comfort him. Then Luna comes up in her freaking lion hat, which I am obsessed with. I want one. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I am Adam, how did she not have like orders for commission like coming in after that?
Because
if I was a Hufflepuff, I guess, but I would be like, she just made that freaking I want like a badger. Can you make me a badger, Luna? I'll pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Fuck. I just saw a text and it totally took me off track.
That's okay. I did want to say also the hat that she made roars. Actually roars.
Yes, it actually roars loud enough like a real lion. And the people in the vicinity jumped.
Yeah, are very scared. Which I love even more.
Oh, this is what I was going to say. Okay, this is why Quidditch is stupid. They're making such a big deal about the keeper position, which I understand it is like a vital blah, blah, blah. The catching the snitch is 150 points. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, isn't that like a little too convenient? Don't you think that was a bit much that Joe did it that way? So it would be like, it's for sure gonna be this huge thing if Harry catches the snitch. Because she definitely did that because Harry is the seeker.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense because even when we have in the Quidditch World Cup where Krum catches the snitch but Ireland still wins, they make such a big deal about it because it's such a rare thing for that to happen. So I don't know why they're freaking out as much. If they're really worried, Angelina should have been like, Harry, you have to find that. You have to be on the fucking snitch as soon as the game starts.
Yeah.
But no, they're like, Ron's got to save these 10-point quaffle whatevers. Girl, who cares?
So Angelina comes over to Harry and Ron, and she's like with Katie and Alicia, and she's like, okay, let's go. And then Hermione just like, has a little aside with Harry where she tells him to not let Ron see those badges. Harry's like, okay. Why? And she's like, just don't let him see them. And then she gives Ron a little kiss on the cheek.
Oh, yes. She sure did, didn't she?
She gives him a little kiss on the cheek. And Ron is very distracted by this for a while. And so thankfully, Harry is able to see what the badges say. But because Ron is distracted, he does not. And the badge reads, Weasley is our king. And so Harry's like, okay, that's weird. Let's just keep walking down to the pitch. This is like, so Ron is like a complete mess. And this is where I made the note that I was like, Ron has generalized anxiety disorder. Yeah. Like he definitely, that's what's happening. So then as they're getting ready, Ron like can't even put on like his jumper, his Quidditch jumper right. Alicia has to like help him out. Do you say Alicia or Alicia?
I say Alicia, but I heard when I listened last week to the episode that he says Alicia.
He says Alicia. Okay, I guess I'll say Alicia then, because that's what he says. So then we find out, as they're getting ready, Angelina shares that the new beaters are none other than good old Crabbe and Goyle, which, like, sure, of course they are. I don't, like, if there was one thing that you saw coming as a Harry Potter reader, it was that eventually Crabbe and Goyle were going to be the beaters on the Slytherin team.
Okay, 100%. But can I tell you why this bumped me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, why?
So they're the new beaters because the beaters, I guess, had graduated or whatever. They don't go to Hogwarts anymore.
Yeah.
How does everyone in this school know that Ron is the keeper, but they are just finding out today that Crabbe and Goyle are the beaters?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That would also be news. I mean, like, I was annoyed that the way it was phrased, Angelina was like, I just got the roster and this is who's playing. And I was like, you could have easily,
but everyone knew
earlier
about
in this
Ron.
chapter, like, mentioned that they had found out that, like, during practices were heading up, they found out that, like, I just was, like, annoyed.
No, that's a great point.
It's dumb.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. They would have known a while ago then, if everyone knows about Ron. Was there a time when people were... No, there was no time where, like, Gryffindor specifically was, like, in the spotlight with the school.
No.
For their... Yeah, no. So Harry looks over at Ron, and he actually looks like he's going to throw up at this point. And then as they're heading out... to the pitch... Harry's, kind of observing the Slytherin team, sees Crabbe and Goyle, sees Malfoy. Malfoy smirks at Harry and then kind of taps his little Weasley badge. Weasley is our king badge. Mm-hmm. And then Angelina, unfortunately, has to shake hands with Montague, who tries to crush her fingers in the handshake.
Montague and Capulet.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the match begins.
Yeah.
We're off to the races. Lee Jordan is narrating as per usual. We love Lee Jordan narrating.
We do.
And he's kind of, just taking us through the beginning of the match. Talks about how he's asked Angelina out, but she's never said yes to him, to which Minnie's like, shh.
Shut up.
Yeah. And then Lee's like, oh, people are loving this. Wow, what are they singing? And then,
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So he pauses for a oh, you're kidding me. I forgot to put my bookmark back in.
An original song
by probably Malfoy.
Malfoy wrote the lyrics, so noted lyricist. Okay.
So, as Lee stops commentating to hear what they're singing, we can hear, Weasley cannot save a thing. He cannot block a single ring. That's why Slytherins all sing, Weasley is our king. Weasley was born in a bin. He always lets the quaffle in. Weasley will make sure we win. Weasley is our king. So, obviously, I understand like how intense it gets with like football matches here. Like, as in, like, but not American football, football matches here.
Yeah.
I understand that this is, like, very much a chant that would happen at, like, an adult football match. And everything is, like, kind of fine. I mean, it isn't, obviously, because, like, we're Team Ron and we don't want... Right. The fact that he was born in a bin... I asked Michael, Adam, I was like, funny. Do you think... like coaches and teachers, if there were kids at a match and they started cheering this at one of the students, the teachers would just be okay with it? And he was like, I mean, if it's in the schoolyard, yeah, they probably won't do anything. But I was like, but this is at a public match. Like, all of the professors are there. So I was just kind of like, there's no repercussions for this. No. That's like very insulting. Mm-hmm. And very classist. So, I mean, yeah, story of this series, but like, it's just like, I'm like, especially this book specifically, just with Umbridge and like how she's connected and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, I just don't, but I'm thinking about our like American football matches. If someone was yelling something like that, I guess there wouldn't really be, the professors aren't like sitting with you necessarily.
Listen, I'm going to say this. I'll speak on behalf of the Slytherins, and I'll say, wonderful house teamwork there. It's really impressive to get a whole group of people to learn a new song.
Oh, my God.
I hope there's, like, harmony.
Oh, my God, yeah. Can you imagine?
Because I do like there's a part where she describes, like, Padma is, like, like the conductor leading them, which is very... No, not Padma. I'm sorry.
Pansy. Yeah,
Pansy,
I knew who you meant.
Pansy. Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, maybe I just like to believe that people aren't this horrible, but I was like, no one is come on. Like, no one is like, can you stop? But once again, how Jo has written the Slytherins to be.
She's just, there isn't a
good Slytherin.
There's not a good
I'm sorry.
Slytherin.
We don't have an example of one.
No.
Do I believe that it was possible for Slytherin House to be made in a way? Because, like, there's tons of people that are like, oh, yeah, I'm like, my sister is a proud Slytherin. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's fine. But, like, Jo doesn't write Slytherin that way.
Correct.
So that's completely just us, the fandom, being like, well, we're going to just, say that that's not the case with Slytherin.
Right.
So Lee resumes speaking in an attempt to drown out the singing. And he tries to kind of cheer Ron on, but then also he says something that I was like, this was meant so well. But I was like, as a person that has anxiety, I was like, ooh, I really wish you wouldn't have said that for Ron's sake. That he was like, all right, here's the new keeper Ron, and this is like his opportunity to prove himself, basically. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was just like, all right, let's see. How's he going to do? And I just would have been like, wow! That would have been the worst thing. I would have been like, well, now I'm going to mess up for sure because you just said that. So he's like trying to cheer him on, but it doesn't work in the way he meant it to. And unfortunately, Ron does not save the quaffle, and the quaffle soars through the center hoop, which I don't know why, but something about them going through the center hoop feels like really,
it feels worse.
Yeah. So the singing is just like somehow getting louder and louder. Harry's looking for the snitch. While he's looking for the snitch, Ron lets another quaffle through. So now it's 20-0. Then very quickly it becomes 40-0. And Harry is at this point like desperately looking for the snitch.
Well, I don't know if he is because it doesn't at one point Angelina like yells at him and she's like, Harry, do your job.
Yeah, that was a little weird because it was like he's looking. But then it also, she had to like come out and kind of like snap at him. Yeah. I think when I wrote like 20-0 and 40-0, I think that was she had already snapped at him. I think so.
Because I know there was like a point where he like got distracted and was just like, I think it was while they were singing.
He was just watching the match.
Watching the match.
Yeah.
Babe, you're on the pitch. Play the game.
Yeah. Get your head in the game, as Zac Efron said.
Get your head in the game.
As Troy Bolton said. Get your head in the game. So thankfully, Angelina scores a goal. And then at this point, Harry hears Luna's lion hat roaring, which is fantastic. I just love it. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after the lion hat is roaring, Harry sees it. He sees the snitch. The snitch is like at the bottom of one of the goal posts, or the goal hoops. And so he swoops down towards this hoop. But unfortunately, the snitch like swerves in the direction of Malfoy, because Malfoy has obviously seen Harry's diving for something, so he's also diving. And so there's this moment where we don't know who's gonna get it. But sure enough, Harry gets the snitch because Harry like rarely has ever not gotten the snitch. And Gryffindor wins.
It's just the one in book 3 with Cedric, right? Where he doesn't get the snitch because of the Dementors.
Yeah. Yep. Cedric. Mm-hmm. Harry! What? No. What did you say? Harry! You say Harry?
Yeah.
Harry! You're doing that?
The like train whistle.
So Gryffindor has won. Harry has the snitch. And then right after he's got the snitch, he is hit in the square of his back by a bludger. But thankfully, he's close to the ground, so he's just a bit winded from being hit and flying off his broom. Yeah. So sure enough, it was Crabbe that hit that bludger at him, and Madam Hooch is giving him a telling off. And Draco is so furious that he's just going all in at Harry about Ron, basically, and the song that they wrote for Ron. And then he's just being really nasty. He starts going in about Ron's mother being fat and ugly and how they couldn't find things to rhyme with that. Then he's talking about Arthur being a useless loser and how they couldn't put that in. And then Fred and George start to, understand what he's talking about. And then Angelina's like, no, just leave it. He's upset because he lost. Like, just ignore him. And at this point, Madam Hooch is still telling off Crabbe, so no one hears him. No one hears Malfoy.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about Harry's mother. And then Harry just loses it. It says like he doesn't even fully remember letting go of, was it Fred he was holding or George? I can't remember. One of them. It was George. Okay. He forgets like letting go of George, and then he just rushes at Malfoy, and with the snitch in his hand, he punches Malfoy in the stomach, and just like he's just wailing on him. And then Madam Hooch casts an impediment jinx to break up the fight, and she sends them to their headmasters and headmistresses' offices. Mm-hmm. So Harry and George walk to Professor McGonagall's office, and she essentially meets them there in the same moment that they arrive. And she is furious. And she's like, yeah, which like rightly so. I mean, it really is stupid. Like, you guys just won the game, and which is essentially what McGonagall said. She's like, obviously he's trying to provoke you. Get under
your skin, yeah.
Yeah, because you just won and he just lost. Which, like, I do agree. Like, I understand how, especially if it's, like, your mother who's passed away. I understand that there's a part of you that just sees red, but it's like, you just won. Like,
you're right.
Harry, come on. And she's really given them a good old telling off. And then suddenly we hear, and then she says, oh, no. May I help? which I was like, oh my God.
No, you
and
can't help.
like Minerva's like about to lose it. She's like, I don't know how you could right now. I don't know how you would possibly be able to help me. So then she's like, Minerva just like turns back to the kids and she's like, you're going to have a week of detention. Nope. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to have a week of detention. That's final. And you better like never act this way again.
Right.
And then this bitch clears her throat again. To which Professor McGonagall is like, which I totally would be doing the same thing. I just would be like, oh my God, dear Lord, please help me in this moment with this woman. Umbridge actually wants more of a punishment for Harry and George, but Minnie is their head of house. So she's like, well, too bad for you, Dolores, because I'm the head of Gryffindor. To which Umbridge responds, oh, well, actually, Cornelius just sent me this. Which, did this not make you barf? Do you know what I realized in this moment, Adam? Umbridge is a pick-me. She's a pick-me.
Yeah.
That's what she is. Mm-hmm. I could like never figure out what it was about her that like there was like that extra layer about her that just made me like want to punch her. And it's because she's a pick-me. Mm-hmm. Like the way she's talking about how he just sent the letter to her, I was like, bleh. Blech.
Gross. Also, the fact that she calls him Cornelius and then after that says the minister.
Oh, the minister. That's what I'm saying, girl. Pick me behavior.
Gross.
So Umbridge has this little decree in her handbag and she pulls it out. She reads out She reads out decree number 25. Mm-hmm. Fudge has now given her, the High Inquisitor, the right to punish students and like revoke any privileges that they might have. So she basically just, she can decide whatever she wants. But no professor can overrule her. Why did
she get this?
Because Minnie, when she was talking about or when she was advocating for the Gryffindor team to be able to play, Umbridge was giving her some pushback. So she went over Umbridge's head and to Dumbledore directly, who of course was like, oh yeah, let the Gryffindor kids play. What? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's worse than that. I think Umbridge says that she wasn't going to let the Gryffindor team reform.
Yeah, no, you're right. You remember how you overrode me when I was unwilling to allow the Gryffindor Quidditch team to reform.
Crazy.
She wasn't even going to let them be a team. I mean, this woman just crazy. She's there to like ruin Harry's life. And I'm not. She really is. Like, that's what she's there to do. Mm-hmm. So, it's in that whole dialogue bit is like brilliant. Like, it's evil. The fact that she's like, oh yeah, I did this because you went over my head. Mm-hmm. And so now you can't do that anymore. Like I was just like, oh, it's so bad. It's so good. Like, I was it's evil. So she bans not only Harry and George, but also Fred from the Quidditch team. And she gives them a lifelong ban. And then she says that she's going to
what?
Like so they can't play Quidditch ever? Like even after they graduate?
Lives? That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's not, there's no way.
I mean, it should have just been for school, but like, yeah, right. The fact that she said lifelong ban. But then, okay, here's the thing I don't believe. I don't believe that she has the authority to take their broomsticks away from them. That's their property. She doesn't own them. Mm-hmm. What if they want to fly somewhere? Because apparently the Flu Network is not standard transportation. So...
It's giving like when teachers would take away people's cell phones. And it's like, that's not, I don't care if you don't want people to text in class or whatever, like it's not your fucking phone. You don't get to take people's shit away.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you can do that. Like as a parent, you can come into the school and be like, give my kid their phone back. That's not your property. Like, right. I don't think yeah, I don't believe that she can take their brooms. I just don't. Everything else fine, but I don't think that she can confiscate their brooms from them. So they return to the common room and Angelina finds out that they've been banned. And then we find out that Ron hasn't been seen since the match.
Right.
The worst part about all of this is that Crabbe only got lines for hitting Harry with that bludger. And I was like, okay, well now this is just straight up like, this is a great example of like how classist society can be in England. That it's like, oh my God, these poor, like actual poor, like, not wealthy. These poor children who just haven't been brought up to understand how society works. And now they're fighting with each other. Oh, and they could have hurt poor Draco Malfoy, who's from this really wealthy family. So he's more important. Like, it's just,
gross.
It's gross. And I have heard a lot since moving here about how classist England is. So that's a huge issue here. And poor Angelina, after hearing that they're banned from the team, she's just like, I'm just going to bed. I can't even deal with this anymore. Like, poor Angelina.
So
she just wanted to be captain and be in her girl boss era.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, let her live her life. So after Angelina goes up to bed, Hermione asks Harry if he's seen Ron. And at that exact moment, Ron comes into the common room. Mm-hmm. And he's still in his Quidditch clothes, and he even has like a little bit of snow in his hair because he's clearly just been like walking around. And then Ron, having no self-love, is like, I'm sorry for thinking I could play Quidditch. It's just all like, he's just like shitting on himself. It's like so upsetting. And then Harry's like, well, you can't quit. Because he's like, I'm just going to resign tomorrow. And then Harry's like, well, you can't, because at that point, then there'll be no keeper, no seeker, and no beaters.
Can I say one thing about this?
Yeah.
Ron feels bad, right? But like, the last thing he knows is they still won the game. Like, yeah, he didn't do a great showing, but like,
right.
To then come back after hours, he had to have assumed they were like celebrating the win. Like, what did he think they were doing in the common room the whole time? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
So then come back and be like, I'm going to sourpuss back in here and ruin the vibe.
After we won
the game.
Yeah.
And be like, well,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
I'm not sure.
It's so crazy that Fred and George both are banned.
I know.
Game. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
She sucks.
But there's this moment after Hermione, because Harry doesn't even want to go through it again. So Hermione does the emotional labor for Harry and tells Ron what happened with the Umbridge situation. And then Ron's like, what? Like, she can't do that? What do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. Harry's like, well, she already did it, so. But then there was this moment, and I don't know if you peeped this too, where Ron's sitting there, and he says, this is the worst I've ever felt in my whole life. And then Harry just goes, join the club. And I just was so upset in this moment because I was like, Harry, all the times that you were like bitching and moaning about shit, and they were able to just like, be like, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, your feelings are valid. And then you instead respond to your friend Ron, who has always been there for you, by saying, join the club. I just was like, can you just hold space for your friend even though you are also sad? There's a way you can do it.
Ron is sad because he's basically been like publicly humiliated.
Yes.
You are sad because you had consequences dealt to you. And I agree that like
it's too far.
It's way too far. I totally understand. But to be like, he's almost acting like he didn't do anything wrong and then all of a sudden had something happen to him. I'm like, okay, bro. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So while Harry is not able to hold space for Ron while he's sad, Hermione is looking out the window and she says, well, I know something that'll cheer you both up. And they're like, oh yeah, what? She says, Hagrid's back.
Hagrid's back.
Hagrid's back. Haggy. And that's it. That's the chapter.
So the other thing I noticed in this chapter when I was reading it is that this is the first Halloween where nothing happens. We just like move through October and we're in November when this match happens.
Oh yeah, she didn't even really mention Halloween. Was there even a little Halloween shout out?
No, nope.
It's very unwitchy of her.
Yeah, because every other book, an event happens on Halloween.
Yeah, right.
So I thought it was
weird
interesting that she was like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, no, she's over it. Not while Umbridge is there. Umbridge was like, no fun Halloween plans.
No Halloween.
We don't do that.
All right, well, that wraps up this chapter. Next week, we'll be reading Chapter 20, Hagrid's Tale. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts, as well as video versions on the Ampliverse YouTube channel and on Spotify. As always, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can get a perfect Newt score, 5 stars only, or else you will be publicly mocked and humiliated and referred to in very classist terms in front of an entire student body, with teachers watching and they won't do anything about it.
Great.
Very long. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HBAnxious or YouTube and TikTok at The Ampliverse. We are hosted on Spotify for podcasters, so thank you to them, and are a proud member of The Ampliverse. Check them out at theampliverse.com. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Adam.
And as always, Nox. Or, and as always,
I was going to say, do the roar. Oh, perfect.